Oh, that is so cute.
Oh, it's fine.
So the question was, what do I think Hollywood's missing? And as it relates to Chicanos, I think it, first of all, is missing Chicanos because they're very rare on television. Although there have been a few programs that have been picked up, they rarely last more than one season, so that's really unfortunate. I think that they miss the diversity of our own background, our own ethnicity, and that we've come in many different ranges of brown, and that we are still all Chicanos, which are part of a larger group of people, which are, of course, Latinos, or like the survey says, Hispanics. So I think that the beauty of the diversity of our culture and our ethnicity are often missed. We become stereotypes, and I heard, I believe it was Lalo Guerrero that said, we're not even being allowed to play our own stereotypes because of the casting of the actor that did Sons of Anarchy as a Mexican in a movie about the cartels of Mexico. So I think they're missing a lot of talent. I think they're missing a lot of cultural or flavor, richness to their dialogues, and I think they're missing just a lot of us.
Okay.
So one thing that I would probably say to the industry, the beauty industry, or Hollywood, is there needs to be more people that look like the regular people you see every day. Of course, there needs to be more diversity, but not just diversity in race or just having like a token person be the representative for all these people, but have folks that have different bodies, different features, that see beauty in different ways, that are actually feeling secure in themselves or confident, so that younger folks, I want to say women, because that's my experience, can have more examples so that they can feel more confident in themselves or appreciating their uniqueness or appreciating the similarities or the differences, versus trying to change themselves, or trying to adjust themselves to look like something that is not them. I don't know if that's enough.
Ask me the question.
Yeah, we can edit it out. What's the one thing about beauty that Hollywood gets wrong? Speak up to if you could.
Hollywood certainly really doesn't really get beauty right when it comes to different cultures and people of diversity. And I think the thing is that Hollywood has a certain standard of beauty, you know? It's like a cookie cutter, you know, having the right shaped nose, lips, certain hair texture, skin, you know. It just doesn't really reveal the true essence of each individual person, because we all have our gifts of beauty, you know, bars, I mean, when I think about it, I think about cultures, you know, like, who have perhaps large lips, you know, noses are larger, you know, really high cheekbones, different hair textures. Those things are very, in their culture, it's considered beauty, you know, but it may not be considered beauty within Hollywood standards, you know, but I think they just get it wrong. They just don't really look at the individual, you know, just look at that individual and see the beauty that that individual has to give to the world, you know. I don't know.
That's good.
These movie companies are telling stories, and with our society today, a lot of people are getting social cues from television or movies, and Hollywood is not taking responsibility for their role in that. And people see a lot of movies without people of color or stories being told from people of color. And I think that's a tragedy that we don't have more stories out there from different perspectives. I think what Hollywood does is they find what works, they create a mold or a recipe, and they just work with it, and they want to sell sex and power. And in this society, what sells is young people, and people look at Caucasians more than they do people of color, or even people like me who are part Caucasian, part African American. So.
One thing that I think that Hollywood just doesn't get about beauty is that their beauty, the beauty that they're presenting, that all the world is following, is fake too. Because first of all, these images that they create, not on screen but off screen, has to do with the red carpet and has to do with the makeup and the hair. For the most part, all those clothes are given to them. There's a lot of money involved in Hollywood's beauty. And what they forget is the real beauty, the beauty of the common man. People like me who have a beauty that's called a thing of beauty. And a thing of beauty is something that's without and that's within, combined to create a great soul and a great sense of beauty. Now, Hollywood, I certainly would not be a part of Hollywood because I am classic African American in my looks and in my soul. My face my face would not be something that they would choose. Now, a lot of people say, oh no, you're being hard on yourself. I'll give you an example. I have always done my best to be the best Vicky I could be, and it's always gotten a lot of positive feedback from wherever I am with my style, my look, my beautiful eyes, my beautiful lips, my gorgeous legs, my beautiful skin color. And I also have beautiful hands. I'm very graceful. When I used to work in the business, when I say the business, for years I worked for a food company, and we did lots of television commercials and advertising. I used to go to Hollywood to do these commercials, and we used to hire hand models to stir the food. That's just how it was. But I always made friends with them. We would talk about our hands. And one of the stylists was with us as we were talking. I was saying, gee, I've always wanted to do some type of modeling. And I said, I know I'm short, but it would be different types. She said, oh, well, for you probably could do it, but you would do the detergent type. And, I kept talking, and the poor guy who was the hand model, white guy, he was so embarrassed, and I was trying to swallow because I'm thinking, here I am again, the maid. But that's the reaction. That's the kind of reaction in general that I always got, because I don't match the standard of beauty. It's only really later in life where I started becoming more beautiful to the broader world. So what Hollywood doesn't get is that they're propagating a false identity of beauty that's cultivated by this culture that glorifies certain types of images, the images of the blonde, the image of the buxom. And usually all of this body type, this look, it's all a part of the money that they can buy to go to the gym, the money that they can use for Botox. And it's short-lived. By 40, that beauty is gone. And Hollywood brings up a whole new style of woman and beauty. So what they don't get is that beauty is something that actually you don't lose. It changes. As we get older, that's one thing that's missing. What Hollywood doesn't understand about beauty is how do you continue, how does a person continue to be viable if all of their lives, the 20 years, they've only lived on a certain type of beauty that discard it. So in the real world, what we're doing as real women is we're really working at it, because we look at Hollywood too. Even though it's not the final resting place of where we want to be, we're always working on being visible, being beautiful, the best that we can be. And I think there's some movement, some change in that direction. I'm seeing a lot of new movements with some of the young people that are having specific types of shows, maybe on YouTube, about body image. So that's the first direction that I'm seeing some change in. But that really doesn't have a lot to do with the darker race, the African Americans, the Latinos, the Asians. Everybody's still looking towards that standard, the blonde, the pointed nose, that type of look. It seems to permeate our environment. And the only way to change it is we have to change it, like as individuals, what we give to our family, what we give to our community, the pride that we have, how we carry ourselves, how we behave, and how we take care of ourselves. And for me, one of the things that my grandmother told me when I was young that really helped me is, because it came from a very poor family, and we didn't really have hot water. I didn't have hot water until I left home. And I wanted to visit my relatives from the South, and I saved my money, and I took a train and went to Alabama, and I met my relatives, and they kind of looked at me and thought, okay, so first thing they did was took me shopping, sort of rinsed me off and bought me clothes and said, this is the real Vicki. And my grandmother gave me a talk about love, about happiness, and about the fact that as I grow to a mature woman, I didn't have to become old, that I'm going to live a long time because it runs in our family. So the thing that I needed to do was to keep continue to behave and live the way I did as a young girl. And the primary thing in life that I had to have my pleasures, that I didn't have to get married, and that I didn't have to have a family, that I had to always have my pleasures, and to always continue to be that young woman. I didn't know what that meant until much later. And much later, after I turned 40, after I turned 50, and then I started to understand, because you don't change. You know, you feel the exact same way inside that you did as a young person. Things look different in the mirror, but you still have that energy and that zest for living. And the feeling of beauty actually compounds, and you start feeling more beautiful because you have less issues to deal with about being successful, about being popular, because you start having more confidence in yourself. So Hollywood, they don't get that. And in a way, I'm saying that they don't get that, but in a way they do, but they turn a blind eye to it. And how do they do that? It's not really blind. The women of Hollywood feel that way because they're discarded. But what they do is they rotate the next group who have 20 years to be beautiful. So that's what Hollywood doesn't get, is that beauty is something that continues, and that we refuse to be discarded as we get older. We refuse to be discarded. We demand being looked at for what we are, for how we look and how we've lived, and that in itself is beautiful.
So it's interesting that you've asked me to stand in front of this mural when you asked me about Hollywood, because right here is Colette Godard, who was, the Hollywood sweetheart, the blue eyes, the light skin, and slender. Of course, size changes over the years, in Hollywood. There's the Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn Monroe era, and then there's the Gwyneth Paltrow era. But what we see is, it's light skin, it's blue eyes, it tends to be slender. Women of color are not portrayed very much. Indigenous women, hardly at all. And if so, only as maids and supporting people. So we move over to Frida Kahlo. And so it's not just about color and size, disability. And Frida Kahlo, as we know, wore this indigenous clothing for several reasons, but one of them was to cover up her disability. So again, Hollywood doesn't want to talk about disability. It doesn't want to talk about women of color. It doesn't want to talk about women of a particular size, that's a larger size, And also, we move one step over, and Rivera has portrayed the indigenous woman. And as I said earlier, they're not much seen in Hollywood. So what Hollywood gets wrong is that there are all kinds of ways to be beautiful, and it only gives us one way.
3.
Okay, what Hollywood gets wrong is that they have an idea that they have it right. In other words, they think that they got it figured out, and if they just do whatever was the last thing that made any money, that would make money and everything would be cool. So they use the same old stereotype ideas about beauty and figure that that's what everybody should look like. And they don't see anything underneath those surface criteria. So they think they got it figured out, but they really, really don't.